Thank you and welcome to the show for today. You are watching Perspectives and I am host Alana McLaughlin. This morning on the show I have an individual character who you'll be familiar with if you're familiar with artists like Morgan Wallen, Nicki Minaj, NBA Youngboy, or Black Youngster. I have producer Yung Lan here to discuss his background, his education, and ultimately the impact that he seeks to leave through his production skill. Yung Lan is a Cumberland, Virginia native, and we're discussing his impact, how he transitioned from Virginia to Atlanta, Georgia, how he has impacted Nashville communities and communities across the United States. And I just want to thank Yung Lan for the opportunity to sit down this morning and for just sharing some time with me. So thank you for that.
Nah, thank you so much. I appreciate it.
To get this ball rolling, I want to talk about early background. Take me from day zero, childhood. Tell me just kind of what life looked like for you coming up in Cumberland, Virginia.
Got you. So I'm born and raised in Cumberland, Virginia. My family, we grew up in the church. So my mom, she played the piano. My grandma sang in the choir. All my aunts and uncles sang in the choir. So very musical background. Cumberland's a super small town. Like, we don't have any stoplights, all chickens, cows, no Walmarts, nothing like that. So yeah.
And so what was, tell me, what was the kind of music you were listening to on the radio, or how did you consume music in that childhood?
I grew up listening to everything from like Soul for Real in the 90s to like R. Kelly to The Temptations to Brooks and Dunn and different people. So yeah, I grew up listening to all different genres and styles.
And take me through now your later adolescence. Tell me high school, tell me what you were interested in, kind of what you were into, how you began to shape the man that you are today.
Yeah, so in high school, like sports-wise, I did like basketball and stuff, but I wasn't very good. So like I was like, I need to do something else, something productive. And I always loved music. It was always something I wanted to be a DJ at one point in time. And then eventually, like, just the passion for music, I started making my own beats. My mom bought my first beat machine. I was probably, I'd say 12, 13. And then she bought me a keyboard and all types of stuff. So she really invested in me. If it wasn't for her, I probably, wouldn't be where I'm at right now.
And I want to go deeper into that first beat machine. I want you to tell me like what it looked like. Take me to like you unboxing this product and what you ended up making with this first machine.
Yeah, if I'm not mistaken, it was like a Roland beat machine. It's a company called Roland. They're pretty big in the music industry and instruments and stuff. So it has like pads on it and stuff, and you could basically like sample sounds and do different things like that. It wasn't like a popular beat machine or anything like that. But then eventually I upgraded. She bought me this big keyboard. It was a Yamaha Motif, which was like $700, $800 back then. So it was a big investment, you know. At the time, my mom was working 2 jobs, 3 children. So she was working hard, and just for her to do that, like, and her belief in me, it meant everything. And
I want to, in this first segment, I want to talk about the transition from this being just a hobby to this being like something that pays the bills, to this being a career. I want you to take me through that first beat, or maybe that first mix that you made that might have done numbers. Maybe you posted it, maybe you gave it to an artist. Take me through that career beginning experience.
I say like one of my first placements that kind of made noise with Roscoe Dash back in probably 2009, I say. Like it was my senior year of high school. So yeah, Roscoe Dash was huge back then, as I'm sure. Yeah, he was huge. So I used to send my beats out to different people in Atlanta at the time whose music I love, because Atlanta was, and still is pretty much the music hub for hip hop. So I emailed him beats, and he used one. He shot a video to it. It was a song called "Put It On You." It wasn't like a single or anything, but just to see that, it just gave me more, encouragement to just keep going.
Now, I'm a total outsider to the business, right? So I'm hearing all this, I'm like, oh my God, this is amazing. Here are the questions that I have in my head that I feel like the average viewer would have. Number one, where are you getting the contact information to send these beats out? Are you like finding on Google? Tell me about that.
Yeah, so back then it was pretty easy because it wasn't as many producers. It wasn't so popular back then. So in order to produce back then, you really had to have like hardware, and it was an investment, you know? So I used to go on Twitter, and a lot of times I would like just mention people or tweet people like, what's your email for me? Some will respond, some people would have it in their bio. So Roscoe was one of the people I think that responded to me, or his management did or something, and just sent him a pack of beats.
Now part two, once he's used this beat and he's put like lyrics over it, does he need to get your permission? Like, do you need to sign paperwork? Tell me about that process before it hits like airwaves.
Yeah. Technically you're supposed to, but back then, I was kind of a novice with the whole industry and stuff. And we didn't do any paperwork on that, but for me it was just more so just an accomplishment, just getting a song like that under my belt and you know.
And in our second segment, we're going to pick back up in this early 2010s era, leading up to really like the Fetty Wap era, which, man, you, as the kids say, you did your big one with that one. But I encourage our viewers to tune into the second segment of Perspectives, where Lan and I will be discussing the impact of hip-hop production in Tennessee. Second segment of the show for today. For viewers just tuning in, I am host Alana McLaughlin. You are watching Perspectives. This morning on the show, I have Yung Lan, an American hip-hop producer, well, multi-genre producer, excuse me, who is discussing his impact, his background, the work that he's done throughout the music industry, and ultimately the impact that he seeks to leave through this work. In our first segment, we set up my guest's early background in Cumberland, Virginia. We talked about his transition. We lightly spoke about his transition to Atlanta, Georgia, and we talked about some early career experiences that he had with like American hip-hop artists, Roscoe Dash, and just some other experiences that went along with it. And we're picking back up in the second segment about his early career experiences, ultimately leading up to his first Billboard placements and all the things that Yung Lan has done. We're coming right back in. We just left off with Roscoe Dash. About how old were you when you're seeing this hit airwaves?
So Roscoe Dash was in 2009, so I was 18 at the time.
And how did that feel, man?
It was amazing because that was my favorite artist at the time. So imagine like working with your favorite artist, and you know, you're in a small town sending beats out, and then that happens. It was a blessing. And
now, did your community, like, did your friends, were you still in high school at that time?
I had just graduated.
Tell me what your peers were saying and thinking.
They were surprised. And it's like coming from a small town like that, people don't really see that it's possible. So like just to show people that it is possible, I think it gave people inspiration.
Now I want to backtrack lightly. I want to talk about what inspired you to move to Atlanta. Tell me kind of what prompted that move from Virginia.
It was something that I always wanted to do. After I graduated high school in 2009, I was taking trips constantly back and forth to Atlanta. So I would go out there probably at least once or twice each month probably, and work with people like Rich Homie Quan, K Camp, just a lot of the up and coming people before they really blew up. I had those relationships already, and I've always had like an ear for music and knowing who's next. So I would work with pretty much everybody before they blew up, and I was like, man, I gotta move out here, because if I move out here, I know the stuff that I'm getting done in these weekends that I'm coming, I could get done every day.
You're right. And you specifically just said that you have that ear for the music, and we're going to talk about how you develop that specific sound, as well as you're able to kind of adapt to what an artist sounds like. I went through your Apple Music producer playlist, and I was listening to the different songs that you would produce for these artists, and I'm like, wow, you can really get in a room and match that artist sound. I see that specifically with Young Boy, especially. He has a very specific kind of flow. It has that Louisiana feel, and you're really able to match that. But before getting to all that, I want to talk about that relationship with Fetty Wap. I want to talk about meeting him, working with him, and the outcome of that work with him.
So basically the way that came about was I was living in Virginia, like I said, at the time, and my barber was from New Jersey. And Fetty Wap's from New Jersey, Patterson, New Jersey. And so I was getting a haircut one day, and he was like, hey, you got to check out this kid, man. So he showed me the Trap Queen video. It probably had 1,000 views, 2,000 views. He was like nobody. Nobody knew him at the time. And so he showed me the video, and I didn't think too much of it. But then a week later, I saw on YouTube that like a huge radio station in New York, Hot 97, was interviewing him. I was like, wow, he's blowing up. My barber just showed him to me. And so I emailed him some beats, and then the first song that we did was RGF Island, which is now 3 times platinum.
Oh my God, now, I know that you're just like, yeah, like now it's platinum. Man, I need to know about like the guts of that. I know that you've produced this beat. Were you sitting with him? Did you make it before getting with him? Did he pick it? I need to know about that kind of experience.
Like being from Virginia, honestly, a lot of times the stuff would just either be out sending beats through text or through email and different things like that. So actually that came about in 2014. I got really sick. I had something called ulcerative colitis, so I had to have emergency surgery. I almost died. So I had 3 surgeries on my stomach, and it was crazy. And so the first beat that I made once I came back, you know, through and everything was fine, was RGF Island. I was like, that's God.
Wow. 3 times
that was and that was my first hit record.
Ooh. Now take me through the next few years leading up to the establishment of Defiant Studios, and I want you to lead up to really the inspiration behind starting Defiant, and really that impact that you seek to leave through that avenue.
So after the Fetty Wap records on his album, I had 3 on this first album in 2015. I got signed to Warner Chappell Music. And then I moved to Atlanta in 2016, April 2016. And after moving, I started working with pretty much everybody, which I'm sure you'll mention in a little bit. But in 2019, I started Defiant Studios. And the reason why I did that was because I wanted to kind of give back to my hometown, give people in the area just a a different opportunity with music and stuff like that. Like pretty much a one-stop shop where you can record and get beats by me and different things like that, and people can network. So it was hugely successful in the area. I had people from Trey Songz to Pooh Shiesty to Big Scar. Pretty much everybody who would stop through Richmond on tour stops would come to the studio. So it was very successful.
And this is all blown up through word of mouth.
Yeah, pretty much just social media and just, yeah.
Oh my goodness, man. Now, I want to talk about just some of the hip hop artists. Before we get into the different genres that you've worked in, tell me hip hop. We've discussed Fetty Wap. Tell me about working with Black Youngster. I know Booty, you produced that. And that's like the first hit that I can think of. But tell me about that experience. Now, did you make that beat first? Did he tell you kind of what he was looking for? Tell me about that conversation.
So the way that was actually in person. That was one of the songs that was in person. So it's always some of my barbers. So my barber in Atlanta, he used to cut Black Youngster's hair. And he was like, he's a very genuine person. His name is Dre the Barber. And he was like, bro, I got to get you to work with Black Youngster. He's blowing up right now. This is probably 2017, maybe 2018. And so I was like, okay, cool, yeah, let's definitely work. So we had a couple sessions. The vibe was cool. And then one day we had another session. At the time, he had a song called Hip Hopper that was out. It was doing good in the clubs. And so I was like, you gotta make some more stuff like this for real, something that the ladies would like as well. So me and my partner, Mark Beat Monster, we made the beat on the spot, like 5-10 minutes. And he wrote a song to it, but it was a totally different song. And I told him, I was like, I don't know, like I don't feel like this really goes with
that beat.
Yeah. And so he changed it up the next night, and I was like, yeah, this is the one. This is the one that's gonna go for you for sure.
And that's a hit. Now this is like my high school era, so like I remember the song, and I hear the song in my head right now, and I specifically hear that Yung Lan on the track. Where did that beat tag come from?
I made that. I made that in probably like 2010 probably. It was just my voice and I pitched it up.
Oh, really?
Because back then it was really popular for like people to use like kids' voices on tags and stuff like that. Yeah. And another thing about the Black Youngster record is he actually helped like make the beat as well, like the whole toot in it. He was like, I want to add that to the beat. And we were like, what are you talking about? And Mark Beat Monster added like a little sound to it, and you know,
it is kind of crazy thinking about, because I think about all the components of that song specifically, like separate, and you don't really think it would flow like it. But dog, I'm thinking about my prom in 2017. I'm like, girl, I want to see you.
It's a timeless song.
And I think that's the most beautiful part about production. It makes you feel something on the inside.
Exactly.
And really, I just started like dancing because I can hear it and feel it.
Exactly.
And tell me about really establishing that ear for what makes people move, what makes people feel good.
Honestly, it's just having a good ear. That's what I would give it up to, honestly. And just listening to so much music as a kid and just having like a diverse like catalog of music, honestly. I don't know how else to explain it,
Because honestly, I think a lot of producers or a lot of just kids in our generation aren't exposed. So especially you mentioned like the Temptations, that old school, where we're losing that. And it's apparent in the sound. We don't hear as many samples, or we hear the same samples over and over.
Exactly.
And I like that uniqueness within your sound. To wrap this second segment, I want to talk about working with Roddy Ricch. I want to talk about Backseat.
Gotcha.
Tell me just about that experience. That's another one of those that characterized like my high school experience. And tell me about working with him.
So what happened was it actually relates to Booty, the Black Youngster record. I had DM'd Roddy because I had seen one of his songs on Instagram kind of going viral. This was back before I think he had his first tape out. And so I DM'd him, I was like, hey bro, I'd love to work with you. And so he was like, yeah bro, let's work. And he was like, I'm a big fan of your song Booty by Black Youngster. I was like, damn, that's crazy. And so back then he probably had 10,000 followers or something. And like I said, I've always known like who's the next person, who's gonna be big. And so we just started working. We had a session in LA. It went good, you know what I'm saying? It wasn't when Backseat was made or anything. Backseat was actually a beat that I made at my house in Atlanta. And I sent it to him. I was like, this would be perfect for Roddy. So I sent it to his A&R Kiefer. And then they sent it back, and I was like, this is a hit. Ty Dolla $ign was on it, and I was like, this is going to be a big one.
And in our final segment, we're going to pick back up on just these accolades, how you maintain your regular life and your mental health while dealing with these artists, with these fans. And we're just going to talk about the impact that you seek to leave through this work, and I encourage our viewers to tune into the final segment of Perspectives, where Lan and I will return to discuss the impact of hip-hop production on Tennessee communities. final segment of the show for today. For viewers just tuning in, I am host Alana McLaughlin. You are watching Perspectives. This morning on the show, I have producer Yung Lan here discussing his background, his education, and ultimately the impact that he seeks to leave through his work. In our first two segments, I set up Yung Lan's early career beginnings. We talked about working with artists such as Roddy Ricch, Ty Dolla $ign, Black Youngsta, and other prominent artists in our community. And in this final segment, we're going to talk about just his current career. We're going to talk about Yung Lan's current ongoing, some of the plans that he has, and ultimately the way that he has impacted our community in ways that we can support him. We just left off talking about Backseat, Roddy Ricch, that whole amazing era, like The Box. I know people just remember all that. I can feel the warmth in my heart, like thinking about that time.
Yeah,
that was a good time. That was a good summer.
It was.
And now I want to jump a little bit to current career. I want you to take me through January 2024 to now in December. Take me through what this year has looked like for you in terms of production, some of the experiences you've had, some of the artists that have fallen within that, some of the accolades that have fallen in that, and really just set up what life looks like right now for you.
Yeah, for sure. So within the last year, we worked with Morgan Wallen, we worked with Post Malone, Hovey, Lecrae, pretty much all the hip hop artists that that you're familiar with that I usually work with. But the Morgan Wallen thing, the record Cowgirls, we did the guitars on there. Yeah, and that I just found out that that's the most played country radio record in a 1 week period in history. So, yeah.
Oh my goodness, I know Nashville ran it up and down. But wow, and tell me about, do you use kind of the same mechanisms, or at least the same thought process working with country artists the same as like these hip hop artists? Are you listening for the same things, kind of listening for the same vibe? Are there any differences between kind of those two styles? Tell me about that.
Really, it's all about just catching the vibe with the artist and seeing what type style that they want to do and then building around that, building the beat around that. And then out here, I'm doing a lot of like collaboration as far as writing as well. So it's a totally new process. As far as Cowgirls is concerned, my guitarist who signed to me, James Maddox, he did the guitars on there, and he did an amazing job. He's very good at knowing what the artist needs or what they might use, and he sent that to Charlie Handsome, and it was history after that.
Oh my goodness. And is that kind of the same with Post Malone?
Yeah, it's the exact same process.
And where'd you tape with him, or where'd you record with him? Was it here in Nashville?
That was an email. That was through email as well.
OMG.
Yeah. Yes.
Now, this actually references something I asked in the first segment. I was asking about like the legal processes. I was asking like, do you need to sign paperwork? Do you need to get all this? Now, take me through today. You're Yung Lan.
Yeah.
You walk in a room and it's like, oh my God, like Yung Lan.
Yeah.
So now tell me about what that process looks like for your beat to be used by an artist and to be sent off to like us regular people.
Yeah. So nowadays, basically the session is normal. You record, do the beats, stuff like that. And then if the artist does decide, or the team does decide they want to put it out, that's when the lawyers get involved, and they'll send agreements, negotiate your terms, your advances, the splits, everything like that. And then once all that is finalized, the record usually gets released.
Now, I don't want to get like too into your business, but I want to know, with royalties, and this is just in general, this doesn't relate to like your specific experience, but tell me, do you feel as the production teams and producers are fairly represented in deals or in packages? My language may not be totally correct because I'm not in that industry, but tell me, do you think that producers kind of have the same protections and the same rights as other members of the team? I know you have like your graphic designer, your artist, your lyricist, but tell me about the producer's experience in this industry.
Honestly, it's all about just having a good legal team and a good entertainment lawyer. As long as you have that, you should be pretty much squared away. When it comes to production, as far as like hip hop is concerned, it's supposed to be 50-50 split.
Okay.
When it comes to country, it's a little bit different because there's so many writers involved and the artists and producers, so it's split a little bit differently.
Okay. And now this, I do want to get in your business a little bit. Back in the day, tell me about your first royalty check. Do you remember like what it came from, what it looked like?
Yeah, so basically, the way that I get royalties now is direct deposit. But if you get under a certain amount, I think it's $25. If you get under $25, they mail you a check. And so I actually have a picture of like my first check. It was under $25, and I posted on my Instagram. I was so happy. So,
but that's a beautiful experience, and I wanted to talk about that because there's a guy that's watching this right now who's making these beats. He's on his like little mixer on his MacBook, and he's getting these $13, $14 checks, and he's thinking like, what am I doing with my time? And I want you to speak to that young producer who really like doesn't know if he's doing this in vain or not. And what would you say to that young producer?
Honestly, it's all about just staying consistent, you know, staying consistent with God as well, and just knowing that, you know, anything is possible. You know, just persevere through anything, trials and tribulations. Just stay at it. That's really what it is.
I agree.
Yeah.
And with talking about God, tell me about your transition to working with Christian artists. Tell me again, is it the same vibe? Are you still giving that ear? Do you notice any character differences between, say, Christian music or hip hop music? I mean, of course, like lyrics, but any style, the vibe of these sessions? Kind of tell me about working with those type artists.
Honestly, I love working with Christian rappers for sure. That's what I've been working with, like artists like Hovey and Lecrae and people like that. But it's special because that was the first time that I've ever been in a session. They prayed before the session, and just, you know, just pray that it's going to be a successful session, productive session. And it's just, it's a beautiful feeling just to be in a room like that. So I love that, and I love the music that comes out because, like, people like Hovey and Lecrae, like I said, they make music that doesn't even sound like it's just like Christian rap, like stereotypical Christian rap. It sounds like something that you would typically listen to, the average listener would listen to on the radio right now.
And that's a big thing as a producer. I'm glad you went ahead and like said the quiet part out loud. A lot of us feel like Christian rap has this stereotypical, almost corny kind of sound to it. It might sound a little juvenile, and that's in an effort to keep it clean and cute, which we appreciate. But I do like that we're entering a new era of where you're able to still make it sound like the mainstream music.
Exactly.
The lyrics and the content may be different, but that vibe, that beat can still sound good.
Exactly.
It can still be a beat that we ride down the street to. Like I think about Jesus Walks by Kanye. You would never really think that you're bumping like a Christian rap song like that, but you think about that beat, that military sound, it changes the whole vibe, and that's really what producers do. That's what you do.
For sure.
I encourage all of our viewers after this episode to go on Apple Music and go through that entire like Yung Lan, like the hits, behind the hits playlist, because you'll see that some of your favorite artists and songs are you touch them, you bless them. Another artist I want to bring up is Money Man, and that's how I'll kind of wrap this final segment before talking about how to connect with you. But tell me about working with Money Man. I know you use kind of like those video game sounds, and tell me about incorporating that.
Honestly, Money Man, we started working in probably like 2017. Shortly after I moved to Atlanta, my friend Traumatone was producing a lot of his records. And so once I heard his sound, I was like, wow, he sounds different than anybody I've heard before. And so I started sending him beats, and he just started using them. And after that, it was pretty much history. We probably got at least 15 to 20 songs together. And I talked to him yesterday. We're working on a lot of new stuff, probably a new project. So just excited. I love working with him. He's super easy to work with, and his turnaround time is amazing. And
that's really the last thing I was going to ask you. Just how does this all feel? And you've just said that it feels good. It's good to like make these relationships and these bonds. And you've also kind of jumped the gun. I was going to ask, what are you working on? What does life look like? And then honestly, it sounds like a lot of hustling,
for sure,
a lot of production. I expect to continue to see your name on Billboard. I expect to be a part of your billions of streams that are under your belt at this point, man. And I want you to end this segment by telling our viewers how they can connect with you. Tell me social medias, streaming platforms. How can people stay in touch with Yung Lan?
Yeah, so you can follow me on all social medias. It's Yung Lan, YUNGLAN, and on TikTok it's The Real Yung Lan.
And what about digital streaming platforms? Anything?
Yung Lan on everything. Yeah, it's just Yung Lan on everything.
And how can people get in contact with you? If a budding artist or producer wanted to get in contact, how would you suggest they go about that?
I'd say the best way is probably Instagram DM. I pretty much always check my Instagram DMs, and I'll definitely get back to you for sure.
And thank you, Yung Lan, for just spending the morning with me, for sharing your time with me, and thank you to my viewers for allowing me the opportunity to share one more perspective. I wish you a good morning.